Sometimes it's hard to focus, just to persevere and just to make it. But everything that's within your grasp, you gotta take it. You gotta go harder, just dig deeper inside you to find that method, that mode that wants that hunger to survive, just to ride the grind, to take it the way you gotta take it and never stop.
Got super fired up. Some more sales coming in, so that's good.
Yeah, for the I forget what I was watching. I was watching something and you said things are starting to pick up on your end.
Yeah, last week we had 4 new people come into it. We just have like an intro, pretty much. Honestly, super fucking low ticket, so we're hoping for long lifetime value more than anything.
You know, it's funny, you start to realize that it doesn't actually like equate to it, like just because it's cheap or something. You know, that's why Rosie sometimes talks about it's like higher price actually gives you a lot of benefit because people are, you know, more willing to commit themselves, or more willing to get the work done, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, welcome back to Closers Only. We got a sick fucking guest on today, Cam Russelle. Super excited, man. Super happy to have you here.
Sure.
Founder of AboveMen. AboveMen.
AboveMen, Above Club. Right now it's just AboveMen. So.
Nice.
But Above Club's the overarching brand.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Flew all the way down from British Columbia.
Just for this.
Yeah.
Just for this, boys. Yeah.
No, we got a retreat this weekend, which is gonna be pretty sweet.
Yeah. AboveMen retreat. So second one kind of. Yeah, it's gonna be lots of fun. So I actually, on the plane ride over here, I was just mapping out all the other gatherings that we're gonna be doing for the year, and yeah, this one's probably gonna be a highlight one for sure. So
Nice.
100%.
Well, I got lots of questions for you about the program. Obviously, I'm in the program. I'm a health coach, and it's been a great experience. So I definitely want to get into that. Also, on the business side, I'm super curious to get some more insights with like how your journey has been in entrepreneurship through growing the business, what your plans are to scale. But first, just to kind of lay the foundation, why don't you sort of share with Phil and I and with the audience, what your program does and kind of how you got to be here.
Yes, what my program does and how I got here. Okay, so top line, what my program does. Funny enough, like I keep tinkering with that. But the core root of it and where it started from was like helping entrepreneurs and executives really just master their energy. And then the following question is, well, like, what is energy? You know, how do you really unpack that? Because for certain people, it's just like your ability to go and do things. But I think it's everything that influences your ability to do the thing. You know, like if it's just your capacity to work, I would also consider your capacity to work and love first off. And then how do you break that down? Well, there's like 4 main variables. Energetic pillars, physiology, psychology, clarity, and environment. And then you can kind of like bundle that to understand it more into the energy equation, which is your physiology times psychology times clarity, and that's all divided by your environment. And that really encompasses what your energy is. So going back to what I do, help entrepreneurs and executives, really just self-led men in general, master their energy. That's like what AboveMen is about right now. Like if you're to join, see the content, see my coaching structures, like that's what it is. And that's really the encompassing of it. So your body, right? The mindset on how you like approach your world is like, if you don't have a intent to maintain high energy levels, you're not going to, right? If that's not a priority for you and you rather sit on a computer for 12 hours, well, it's like, you're not going to do that. So you also have to work with your mind to make sure that that's clear. You have the intent to do it, but also like when things get tough, how do you manage your energy, stress and emotion? I think clarity is a huge piece. One thing that I've actually really been digging into is the importance of your goals and clarity on them and how that actually ripples into all other areas of your life, like everywhere. It's crazy. So I've really been pushing myself to think on like, how can I help guys and my clients and in the community maintain clarity on their goals? Because it's such a big component. That's why I talked about it, but I didn't realize how much it actually drove people's actions. And the worst part is this is the noisiest world we've ever been in. And so we're getting more distracted than ever, and the opposite of distraction is focus. So if we're distracted, that means we're not focused. And if we're not focused, that means we're looking at someone else's goals, not ours. And so clarity is a huge component. And then the environment. Who do you hang around with? What information do you consume and let into your awareness? And then what is your physical surroundings, right? Like we're in a pretty, clean space right now, host Braun Paints, right? But at the same time, if we walked into this place and it was a mess, I bet you, the conversation wouldn't be as coherent and nice, clean in the mind. And B, when you're working, you probably wouldn't be able to work as well, right? So we got to make those considerations. And the better environment is, the easier it is for the top three to thrive. So that's what I do in a nutshell. How I got there is a long journey, and the synopsis of that was I pretty much solved my own problem. So I was 150 pounds, super shy, skinny, constantly getting sick. Even past that, before I was in like high school and cared about that stuff, I had a lisp. I just couldn't even really I had poor communication skills, and in doing so, it kind of built this huge void inside of me between my physique, the people around me like reaffirming that my physique wasn't enough, me feeling that way, and then like my speaking, and then the lack of male role models in my life. My dad was there but not present, so he totally missed the ball on showing me so many things. Like I've now learned that's the case for many men in North America today, unfortunately. And so paired with no masculine role model, didn't really know how to like handle my emotions, mind you deal with girls, go through the whole like relationship thing, how to navigate starting to like talk to girls, talk to other men, etc. That wasn't there. Was again 150 pounds, super underweight for my height, and that boiled into me going and solving my own problems, right? Showing up as a man, getting my physique dialed in, learning about mindfulness and like all these like weird thoughts that I was having. What are those? Are those mine? Are those someone else's? Dealing with nutrition. Like I did a crazy dirty bulk at one point, got up to like 210, super puffy. And I was like, this ain't it. I was constantly tired. I was eating the shittiest food, but I was getting to my goal, quote unquote. And I was like, wait, this isn't it. So I just solved my own problem, and then came to a point where I was like, damn, I could actually help other guys do this. And then it started out like, oh, well, what problems did I solve? At the time, it was narrow. I could go from skinny to shredded. I could help skinny dudes put on weight, right? I was like, it's it, but I don't think that encompasses everything that I solved for myself. And then I went a little broader. I was in a tech startup at the time, so I met a bunch of entrepreneurs. Then Student Works, so I figured, oh, maybe I could actually help entrepreneurs not just like get in better shape, but avoid burnout. Right? Because at the time I just saw in the tech world, everyone was on the verge of burnout, right? Everyone. And now that's just a broader thing. Most entrepreneurs they deal with a lot of stress, etc. It's like, oh, that's something. And then I didn't really, at the time, take in the masculinity side, like how that affected me in showing up for myself, and then any roles that I played within, a relationship or in work situations. But then I realized, like, I wasn't the only one that actually was facing a lot of this masculinity stuff. Like, didn't have a dad that really showed up for me, didn't know how to manage my emotions, etc. And when I realized that, I was like, fuck, dude, a lot of men are actually dealing with that to some degree. And a lot of it came back down to they didn't have a male role model that could show them the path outside of work. We all have some sort of like work mentor, business mentor, someone that's going to show us the rope in terms of our career, because it's that most of the time advantageous for them to do so. But no one's showing us the other stuff outside of that. And so once I got there, that's where the name AboveMen really shaped and made sense. Otherwise, it could have been, Above Entrepreneur or something. But it's long-term is more than that. And so that's where it came from. It was like I solved my own problem, figured what did I really solve, package that, and now we're on the path to really enabling, at the end of the day, self-led men to master their energy in a lot of ways. So yeah, start there and we'll unpack that.
That's cool, man. There's a lot of different ways that we could take that.
So much,
a lot of different doors you opened up. But one thing I do want to kind of get some more insights on. So you mentioned you solved your own problem, and I'd be super curious to hear about the process of how you solved that problem. What things like trial and error, what other content you were consuming. Did you have any mentors? Like, how did you solve your problem initially? Yeah,
it's such a good question. I think one of the reasons I'm able to be in the position I am today was how my brain worked. Like I drove my mom nuts when I was younger because I was just a classic why child. I just why, and I'd just be poking her, why is this, and constantly asking that. And early on, that got me in a lot of trouble, honestly, because I was always trying to do things out of what people were telling me. People would tell me one thing when I was younger, and then I'd be like, well, what about this way? I'd be like asking what other ways and whatnot. So early on that got me in trouble, but then later on that's actually served me in the sense of I was constantly just analyzing the background of things And that led me to just an immense amount of trial and error. Like so much trial and error. And that, along with it, led me to asking, who should I learn from? What book should I read? So the underlying part of like how I got here was just so much self-taught, going through the motions, making a ridiculous amount of mistakes, but then just like wasting so much time on just dumb stuff that didn't actually matter. But I like learned why it didn't matter by going through it. And then the mentor side, like I said, my dad wasn't there, didn't really, show me a ton. And so I was constantly craving these role models in my life that I had to just naturally go and find. And we're blessed with the internet that the amount of potential mentors is just like blasted wide open now. And so I've actually considered a lot of these guys online my mentors. I would consider anyone that you're able to like truly learn from, in a way, a mentor of yours, right? So I have a lot of digital.
Who are those guys for you? Who are some of your digital mentors?
Working from the present backwards, the most present one right now is Brian Johnson. Not, vegan Brian Johnson, Blueprint Brian Johnson, but a guy that runs a company called Heroic. And he wrote a book called Arte. And that's probably how he's best known now. And I went through all this stuff, went through his coaching program. I'm technically a certified heroic coach through him, and he's taught me so much lately. Like, it's been phenomenal. A lot of my coaching is based off his philosophies. A lot of how I operate is based off his philosophies. And his philosophies, funny enough, is based off of what he basically did was went out and just reviewed and researched and studied and synthesized all the best content across ancient philosophies, modern science, self-help, like the Tony Robbins, guys like Marcus Aurelius, and just distill it into his own thesis. And so he also had a bunch of different mentors, and it's just a constant synthesizing of information. And so I even have taken what he's learned. He's like, hey, I get it from this person, then I'll go down that rabbit hole if it really resonates with me. But Brian Johnson's been by far the biggest impact on my life recently, and probably in general, I would say it's just phenomenal because he's taking from such prolific individuals. Another one that came up for me that if you look him up on Google, you'll be like, what the fuck? His name's Kevin Trudeau, and he got outs and super blackmailed online. He's basically a huge smear campaign went on from him, but his information, specifically this one audio series called Your Wish is Your Command, unreal. At the time, it changed my life to a whole new level. And it completely revamped the way I think about things and how to perceive your world in a way. Your Wish is Your Command basically is the law of attraction demystified and then put into practical terms today. So I can actually go and use that. And again, some people are still going to see your law of attraction and think it's woo-woo.
Yeah.
That's up to them. I'm very certain that stuff works. And there's a lot of evidence both in religious texts and in science texts that say it does work. So Kevin Trudeau is another huge one. Lewis Mocker was another early one for me. He's out in Australia. Those would be probably the big three as soon as you ask that, they're instantly pop into my head. But I know there's so many that come to me. And again, what's a mentor? Someone that just teaches you where they've gone, right? Shows you how to get to where they're going. Cool. So I think there's a lot of guys like that for everyone.
So would you say you're kind of doing a similar thing where you've been just kind of synthesizing information, kind of just bringing it all into one place and kind of filtering through it to repackage it and give it out? Is that
100%?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I would classify the protocol in AboveMen. So there's coaching, protocol, community, and the protocol is just me constantly studying and experimenting and then distilling into the protocol. And the protocol is just a bunch of information synthesized from a bunch of different sources. Because I'm a big believer, there's very little information that hasn't been learned in today's world. We're just at such a pinnacle of information now. We're in the information era, right? And so there's really nothing that hasn't been discovered. Very, very little, right? And if it is, it's not stuff I'm talking about anyways. It's AI, quantum computing, that sort of thing. So the stuff that I teach on, a lot of it's been figured out, quite frankly, figured out for a long time. I'll take a big inspiration of mine which is Aristotle and the Stoics, they've solved so much in terms of how to operate as a proper man. And we just completely lost that over the last like 2,000 years. And we're kind of figuring that out again, but it's still very much lost. And so, yeah, definitely not reinventing the wheel by any means. But what I am doing when you synthesize is you're bringing it into a context that makes sense for A, your audience, and then B, for the time.
Mm.
So A, audience, I'm primarily dealing with right now, entrepreneurs and executives. So they're busy, they have certain characteristics and attributes to them that others don't. And then the time, we're living in a completely different era that if we went and talked to Aristotle again, he wouldn't even know what to do with himself at first because of just like the amount of sheer amount of inputs, mind you, roles that we commit ourselves to, all the goals and pressure and all the technology we have to manage and all the new skills we're trying to learn every single day. So the context is also important, and that's constantly changing. So that's where I'm like, okay, I have this, back room of knowledge, and how do I keep putting it out for my guys that makes sense within the roles they're in and the context of the world that they're living in.
Totally.
Yeah.
I like that. So I guess just to get like kind of some clarity on what the AboveMen program is, I think in your earlier answer, it kind of seemed like it was the intersection of three things.
Yeah.
The first being like, fitness, essentially, like, your body, your power, your strength, stuff like that. And then it's like your energy, your wellness, and like, your performance at work, like your kind of overall well-being. And then you've got like the masculinity aspect as well. Would you say that's like an accurate description? It's kind of the intersection of those three things, or?
I would actually just blend the first two.
Okay.
And yeah, I would like the long-term play for AboveMen is really there's like a triad here. There's your energy and performance. So that's again your physiology, which would go into the fitness. So your physiology, psychology, clarity, and environment. That's one part. And then the next part would be like masculinity and mindset. So that comes down to how you're showing up as an actual man in your masculine. And then the third part, which we haven't talked on at all, which I don't even really talk on too much right yet, but it's totally part of the roadmap, which is like dating, dealing with women, showing up as a man in front of a woman, like that's that one. So I would call those the three pieces that I focus on if we wanted to look at it from a macro lens.
Yeah, I saw recently in one of your email newsletters you said like you were gonna stop talking about dating. Was there a reason for that? And then like the next one was about dating. What's going on?
Yeah, so basically the startup role that I'm in, or like the challenge of a startup in a lot of ways, is just finding your voice. You hear content creators that are way down the path. It's like your first year, your first 100 episodes is just you finding your voice and who you are. And I've gone through different programs, and my mind is constantly thinking about this stuff, and I constantly oscillate between just narrowing myself and being really focused on this one thing up front, and then the back end I have all these topics that I will talk on, versus just talking about all these topics and then using them as hooks for people to come in, and then once they're in, they'd be like, oh, Cam also talks on this, this, and this,
Gotcha,
right?
yeah.
And so I oscillated between those, and at one point, one of the people that at the time I was listening or attempting to listen to, and I don't follow instructions that well, they're like, you need to narrow. I'm like, okay, I will. And it just never sat right with me. And if something doesn't sit right with me, and this is literally the analogy of my life, I just won't do it in a lot of ways. Like I'll just like naturally veer out to what feels natural. Some of the natural thing was just, let me just talk on all the key pieces that I want to talk on. If that means it's going to be a slower road to building a bigger audience or a bigger business, so be it. I'm in here for the long haul. And the idea of like niches are in the riches, I think I still play into that because I'm a niche of one in a way. Whereas like, and it's kind of like a Joe Rogan analogy, right? Where it's like, no one can do what Joe does because look at what he's talking about, right? It's like comedy, UFC, and then the classic analogy is like aliens as well. And it's like
DMT.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like no one can be Joe. And I realized that. It's like I was trying to niche down in the sense of being narrow with what I talked on. But I was actually limiting myself in the sense of my niche is actually talking on those three things I talked about in my own idiosyncratic way. And I wasn't serving that. I wasn't accepting that. I was trying to like fit into someone else's mold. And that just historically has never worked for me. And so I feel the best if there's a topic that I really feel drawn to, let me speak on it. Because when I speak on it, I think I come across very captivating in a lot of ways, and authentic and aligned, and it just really flows for me. So I'm like, why am I holding that back? And so I realized that. I'm just like, no, let me actually talk about this. And then a couple weeks later, I dropped the memo on it.
Yeah.
You know, you're mentioning your personal brand and how it's really just like authenticity. Like you're one of one.
Yeah.
There's no one else that like has your exact niche.
Totally.
You're not selecting a niche and trying to fit into a mold. You're just like, hey, these are the things I'm interested in. This is what I'm going to talk about. I think that's really valuable as well, just for longevity's sake. If you're in it for the long run, you start pigeonholing yourself into something that you're doing just for like some potential financial outcome. You're not going to be able to sustain it and have the passion that's required to be successful.
Totally.
Which I think is cool, and I think one of the things that I'm trying to do on the podcast is just like ask questions I'm like genuinely curious about, as opposed to kind of coming in with too much of an agenda. Personally, for me, like I love business. Like the game of business is so interesting to me, and I would love to sort of learn a little bit more about you, your business model, like you know, your plans for scaling. And I think in thinking through your business, obviously without the full context of your business, I was kind of sitting and thinking, I was like, there's probably 3 potential pathways for Cam to scale this. One pathway would be going more of like the digital route, so continuing with a lot of the online content, potentially putting together an online course. It's a lot more scalable, probably lower ticket price, but higher volume. Then you've got the coaching route, where you're scaling it up and you're hiring coaches who are doing the one-on-one coaching, and it's kind of like that middle ground. It's like, you know, pretty big ticket and it is personal, but it's obviously not everybody having access to you. And then the third potential pathway would be like a small, like super elite community. Like your group of, 40 or 50, like the brotherhood just becomes more and more elite. And all of a sudden you've got people paying like 6 figures a year to be in that community. And it's like really something that people like want to get into. It's like super elite. Those were obviously just kind of the first that came to mind. I'm curious, like, do any of those resonate with you? And more so just like, what is your plan to scale?
Yeah, 100%. Well, what I will say is by no means I have this figured out.
Cool. I like that.
And it's still a work in progress for a few reasons. One, like business is super new relative to where like I said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like this is what I absolutely love. And so relative to where it could be, who the hell knows?
Right.
You know? But the plan that I have put together is basically the overarching maxim is how can I continue to democratize, not create more exclusivity. And I think there's a time and place within a business to keep it exclusive, whether it be like down the road when I have it democratized to the point where maybe it's, again, $20 a month for the app that has all the content in it, and there's this like upper mastermind in terms of your value ladder. Great. But the long-term vision is I want to continue to democratize the information and the access in the community as much as I can. Because my long-term vision is to impact and help as many men as possible master themselves, right? Like that's the long-term play. Within those 3 categories, their energy, their masculinity, and their mindset, and then like dating and women and relationships. Like those 3 buckets, I just want to help as many men as possible. Right now, like the overarching number would be like 1 million guys leading their own tribe, right? Like that's kind of the mission for now. And then I actually bought into a North Star from Brian, that he bought into that North Star from someone else, which was 51-20-51. And by 2051, have 51% of the world flourishing, right? So what does flourishing mean? That's basically a loose translation of what Aristotle talked about, which is like eudaimonia. And eudaimonia is basically that like, that expressing that best version of you. So if we go back to it, we want just over the majority of the world in that best version of them, right? And I just think that's such an amazing North Star that like is so far-fetched, but how can you just create your own little impact in that, right? So my goal is to, again, if I were to look at it, if we were to go down the path of just keeping a small group of guys and I charge a ton of money, sure, it might be easier, I might make more money profit-wise, but am I fulfilling the long-term purpose and impact that I want to make? Probably not, And that's why I get why a lot of these guys do these high-end masterminds, and at the same time, it kind of signals to me that to a degree, they're not doing it for an impact or like the long-term purpose, because if it is, it typically comes to how can I create an impact in as many people as I can. Not saying that's with all cases, because there's different ways of like, hey, if I really get good at coaching this person, that person can go and impact other people. Cool. But for me, it's how can I create a system and a community and products that can impact as many men as possible. So the long term is to eventually have like an actual app, or at least a community that is relatively cheap, so low logistics on my end, and can serve as many guys as possible. So that app would kind of look like Brian Johnson's Heroic app. Highly check it out, because there's like a ton of philosopher's notes in there with book summaries, a bunch of different content. You know, there's lots of just good stuff in there. And so I'd love to have an app where you could charge $20, even $10 a month, but have that across, like, you know, imagine hundreds of thousands of men using this app. Not only does it become a huge source of a community, but they're all built upon the same philosophy, which is the AboveMen protocol, that then like they become like-minded the longer you're in the community, and then you can start to move in the same direction because of that, right? I think there's a lot of power in that, of having, like, say, call it like even 50,000 men all operating on relatively the same protocol and thinking the way of thinking. There's a lot of power in that when you start to like want to move certain ways, right?
Yeah, there's a ton of power. The first thing that comes to my mind is that there's a lot of responsibility as well. Like, for you to be in charge of 50,000 men would mean, like, not to say, it would almost be like a discipleship that you'd have of people who your impact across like the world would be like massively high. So I guess my question would be like, what in that place, like, what would you be doing? Like, how would you be growing your team, or would you be doing it yourself to make sure that the things that you're preaching are like things that you genuinely are sure are the right things to be preaching? Because potentially you preach the wrong thing, and then you know, now all of a sudden 50,000 guys are wreaking havoc on the earth.
Totally. Yeah, it's a good question. At the end of the day, again, you don't know until you go and like execute on certain stuff. But to maybe project forward, it's really doing what I'm doing now in the sense of practicing what I preach. Like, I think the one thing that a lot of guys, when they come into my program, and the more they get to know me, is like what Cam talks about in his content, in his coaching. Like, I'll find him doing that when no one's watching
Every day.
And so, yeah, like, and so if this is the stuff that's working for me, and I know when no one's around, I'm feeling fulfilled, I'm feeling like that my cup is full, I'm doing the right things, I'm feeling great, right? I'm impacting my community in a positive way, I can be pretty confident that when I take what I'm doing and just document it into a protocol and give it to you, you're going to be able to get similar results in your own idiosyncratic way. Which brings up the last point, which I continue to try to harp on in the program and in the community, is like, guys, this is what works for me and I think works for everyone else. At the same time, you're your own being, and I want you to take this, think on it critically, and go and apply it in your own way. Because I don't want you to ultimately be led by me. I want you to be advised by me.
Gotcha.
Right? And instilling that kind of meta thinking, where whatever I give you, don't just take it at face value. You can at first, and when people first come to my program, what I say is like, I'm going to do everything for you, all the thinking, and then the longer you're with me, I want you to do the thinking for yourself, right? But up front, you don't know this stuff, so I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to trust that have your back, I have your best, right? And then long term, I'm going to give you the underlying principles as to why I'm giving you these things. So over time, when I'm pulling off the training wheels, the idea is you can still operate at a high level because you know the principles that are making up these decisions that we're creating for your life around your health, you know, your masculinity, your dating, etc. So that's how I would kind of like go about that, and that's really what's been happening in a small sample size, which is AboveMen today.
Cool. So from what if I'm hearing right, you're kind of like patient zero, and then you test things on yourself, and obviously like, you solve these problems for yourself, and then you pass it along with a grain of salt, but with some guidance as well. Yeah,
100%. And I think that's where you get the best from a mentor as well, is when the mentor isn't like it's this way or it's no way. It's like, this is what typically works, and this is what I did to solve the problem, and this is what I'm doing today, maybe, and take it, think on it, and let me see what you come up with.
Cool.
And I would imagine it's like research plus testing on yourself, plus the bigger pool of people that you get that you're testing on, the more like information you're getting to like update and iterate.
Bingo.
I guess I'm curious, like obviously your program is like pretty solid. You know, you've obviously got like the foundations and everything built. Like how much do you expect your program and your protocol to change over the years as you get new information?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely think the program itself and how it's delivered has so much opportunity to improve. I'm trying to build it where for every new guy that enters into the community, into the program, it actually becomes better because he's in it, not like bog the system down. And that there's still some work to be done because a lot of it is still relied on me and only me. Like I don't have any outside coaches right now, which is part of the plan, but it's just not the case. So like for every new guy that comes on, in theory, I become slightly a bit more bogged down, but I rely heavily on the content. In terms of the protocol, I mean, listen, there's only so much that you need to know when it comes to your energy around your eating, your moving. Like a lot of these things are just like tried and true principles that, like I said, I'm just bringing in within the context of the busy individual, the entrepreneur, the executive, etc. And then within the times of 2024, right, the 21st century, internet, social media, vaping, like I'm bringing it within the context of all of that. And so the things that are going to change the most is A, any new technology that we come across, does that allow us to become better individuals? Cool, I'm going to incorporate that. And then B, does our environment, does our cultural shift enough where things within the program or the protocol need to shift in accordance to? So I would say that, but outside of that, like one of the biggest pieces I preach is playing the ultimate game, which is closing the gap between who we're capable of being versus who we're actually being, right? This is what Aristotle talks about, eudaimonia via arte, right? That's not going to change, ever. Like I truly believe for the rest of our life, we're going to be chasing that and continuously trying to close the gap and show up as that best version of ourselves, moment to moment to moment. How we do that might differ a little bit, but that's just a tried and true principle for 2,500 years since Aristotle, labeled it. So I think to a degree it'll change. To a degree, I think it'll forever stay the same. And it's just how can you continue to recommit to the basics? That's the biggest thing. But I think the guys that continuously fall off is they think they're too good for the basics.
Gotcha. So I just had a question pop into my mind. When you say trying to close the gap between who you are and the best version of yourself, I was wondering, like, do you have any process to figure out, like, what the best version of yourself would look like? Because, like, that could change, right? Like, my perception of what the best version of myself could be different than, like, the actual best version of myself. So, like, I'm sure part of, like, one of the hardest parts is actually figuring out what the best version of yourself could actually be.
Yeah, yes and no. It's supposed to change.
Gotcha.
Like, if there was, if it was a static thing, life would probably become pretty dull pretty quickly.
Yeah. And
the idea is for every mile closer you get, it gets 2 miles further, right? And I was actually thinking about this on a physical realm when I started the Ironman training. So I'm training for half Ironman right now, and when I committed to this, I asked myself, what was the hardest thing I'd done up until now? And nothing came to mind that was like super outstanding. Why? Because at my current point, I look back and everything I did has shifted in terms of relatively how hard it is to what I think I'm capable of now. Why? Because that best version of me has leveled up, right? So that version of you is constantly becoming further and further away as you approach it. And that's the whole goal. And Maslow talks about what one can be, one must be, but that what one can be is a constant iteration. And so there really isn't the better way to answer this, actually, past that, because I think that's important to know, that it's not static, it's dynamic, but it's up to you. You got to ask yourself when no one's around, right? And I talk about this to entrepreneurs all the time. Great, you made a bunch of money. Congrats, right? But when you're alone by yourself with all that money, do you feel like you showed up as your best self? Do you feel like you're doing everything you can to show up with mastery? All the time it's no, right? Because the money isn't the actual thing that's going to allow you to feel like you're showing up as your best. It's the conversations you had with your team members that day. It's how you showed up for your partner before you left for work. It's how you treated the individuals on the other side of the phone when you're having a sales conversation. Like, those are the things that are going to matter to you, that are going to make you feel fulfilled, make you feel like you're showing up as your best. Because at a certain point in entrepreneurship, specifically right now, it's so easy to make money. Right? Input A gets input B, do that enough times, we're making money. Great, right? So at a certain point, you can let off the gas pedal, but money's still coming in. And so if you're just basing your worth off of the money, your ability to succeed off how much money's coming in your bank account over time, there's this huge disconnect between, again, who you're capable of being versus who you're actually being. And then one day you're going to sit there and be like, fuck, dude, why do I feel so dull inside? Why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel like I'm not doing enough? Because you look at the wrong metric, right? So it's about, to answer that, it's about that question being asked to yourself daily and sitting with yourself. But again, that causes you to remove the social media, remove the phone, remove the inflammation, remove the food, remove all the inputs, and just literally sit with yourself. And this is why I preach mindfulness so much. Things like meditation, journaling, etc. Because we're way too noisy up here and we don't give ourselves that space just to ask the question, how can I show up as a better version of myself?
So it's a very intuitive process rather than like looking at things like, oh, I should be jacked. I should be just like looking at yourself and figuring out what you think the best version would be.
Because dude, we have the answer inside of us at all times.
Yeah.
It's just, are we going to give that version of us, there's two versions, our daimon, our highest version of ourselves, and our demon. Okay? A lot of the time, it's our demon that's operating, right? And we just don't give ourselves the space. We don't give our daimon the attention to give us the answer. But as soon as we ask, am I doing enough? Instantly you know. Like if you give that question with enough space and you listen intently, you know. Like everyone knows. Like it's, you always can answer that for yourself. It's just a matter of, do you A, ever ask that, and B, have the space to listen.
I love that.
Yeah, I really like that answer. Yeah.
Speaking of the space to listen, I know one thing you mentioned is like our society these days is so distracted. Like we're just bombarded with all these different things. And so like what would you say to someone that maybe has never taken the time to really set a firm goal, or maybe they have certain goals. I want to get this grade in school. I want to do X in this business. But maybe they haven't really spent the time to go and understand what that means for them, how that plays into the bigger picture in their lives. And then they're also told by society like, hey, you should like have balance, and hey, you should, it's totally okay and normal to like go out and drink, like you're young only once, like go have fun. And that person deep down maybe knows they're unfulfilled, like maybe knows they're capable of more, but they aren't necessarily convinced yet, or maybe they're kind of convinced, but they don't really see the roadmap for taking that first step into it's eudaimon that you talk about, which is like being your best self, being fully understanding of who you're capable of being and following that. So what would you say to someone who's like maybe just starting that journey, or is kind of not even into that journey yet? Like for someone who's like, hey, I don't care about being a millionaire, maybe I just want some balance in my life, what would you say to that person?
I would say, where are those beliefs coming from? Why are you saying that exact statement? If someone's like, because millionaire aside, but let's use the millionaire thing for example. Why are you saying you don't want to be a millionaire? A lot of the time, it's coming from some societal norm or some programming that they had early on in their life. Whether it was, you can't do that, or you don't need that, or whatever it is.
Or money is bad, maybe.
Money is bad, exactly.
Rich people are bad, they're mean, they're taking advantage.
Bingo. There's so many reasons why someone has some sort of belief about a certain thing, or especially early on in someone's life. Unfortunately, even when they get later into life, because what happens is they never examine themselves. So a great quote by, I'm going to screw it up, I always get confused between Seneca and Socrates. An unexamined life is not worth living. I'm 90% sure it's Socrates. But an unexamined life is not worth living. Why is that? Because if you don't examine your life, it's not your life. And so when someone says, I don't want to be a millionaire, it's like, cool, that could be true, but is that you saying that? And deep down, again, going back, and I love this analogy to go back to this, mental picture. It's like when it's you alone, no one else is there, do you actually believe you don't want to be a millionaire? Or are you just saying that to compensate that you either don't have the skills, you don't believe you could, whatever it is, right? And a lot of the time it's, no, it's not actually you saying the thing, okay? It's someone else has told you a certain thing that has made you believe that this outcome is bad, or it's not worth pursuing, or whatever. And so one of the things that I always have guys consider is, where are you getting a lot of your desires from? A lot of them are coming from false places that you've never accepted as yours, or you've just unconsciously adopted them, right? You haven't gone through and been like, do I actually believe this? Is this something that I actually think to be true in the world or to be true of myself? And if that's true, is this something that I want to be true about myself, or can I change it? No one goes about that process. And so the perfect example is go to college. We go to school, we go to university. Why? Not because a lot of the time we want to, especially today. I get, goosebumps thinking about it because that was my situation. I literally dropped out because I was like, wait, I don't care about this, right? I actually literally just had a conversation with one of the guys inside of AboveMen. I'm so fired up for him because we were talking, and he's like, man, I think I'm going to drop out of school. And I just get fired up when people say that, first of all. And then we started talking. I'm like, well, why did you go to physio in the first place? Why was this important to you in the first place? He's like, well, when I was 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be a physio, and I was just stayed on that track. And so every time I said I was going to go to become a physio, I just constantly got external validation that I knew of it so early, and it's a great career, and yada, yada, yada. So from 12 to 18, for 6 years, he got validated that this was the right choice. He should do that. This is what it is. Everyone's like, yeah, go. Yeah, you could do that. And then he gets in physio school. He's like, wait, knowing what I know now, knowing who I am now, knowing what I know about the world now, I don't actually want this. But the belief that created that 12 years ago kept him on that same track until he examined it right now, literally 2 weeks ago. He's like, holy fuck, that belief is so far out of reach to current reality because of all the new information I've found that I've become aware of. So this belief actually doesn't serve me anymore, and in doing so, I'm going to make a new decision. And so there's a long-winded way to answer your question around, first of all, check your beliefs. Like, figure out, are the goals you're going after actually the goals you want? Because a lot of the time they aren't. And a lot of the time, even if they are yours and you want them, they're coming from a different, they're stemming from a different desire, right?
You're fucking scaring me right now. Making me rethink everything.
Wait, how so? I'm curious.
I'm just like, why do I want to do anything? Like, why do I want to run this business? Like, what's the whole, what's the point? Like, I think I know why I'm doing it, and I think I know what my beliefs are, and I have thought about it quite a bit, but I don't know.
So this is a good test. So when that happens, this is a good feedback loop to how certain you are about your decisions. So for me, I'm getting tested weekly, sometimes daily, on is what I'm doing what I actually want to be doing or what I should be doing, etc. Right? And what comes with that is this initial sense of uncertainty, because it's typically there's a bit of confusion or lack of clarity in my business, or like what the next steps are for me, or I get tested with like tough conversations, or a lot of time it comes up when like money becomes a factor. Being a startup, money's still definitely an issue. Allocating it, I'm using it as my income, etc. In those moments, it is a constant check for me. Is this what I actually want? Is this actually that important to me that I'm going to go through all of these hurdles to make it out on the other side? And every time I come back to, I actually brought it to my bag, my Flourishing Self book. It's my goal book. It has all my principles, why I'm making the decisions, what's important to me, what my goals are. And I go back to that. I'm like, no, this is what I want. But it gives me that clarity, and it prompts me, oh wait, is this still it? Yeah, okay, cool. And I'm certain again, right? I have that foundation to work off of. But if you don't have clarity, and at one point you thought about it, and then it went away, and then next time you think about it, you're like, oh shit, that's not actually true anymore. But if you, the more often you iterate, or not iterate, but the more often you feed back that belief into your questioning, the more certain you can be on the path that you're on, and the less time you're on the wrong path. Right?
I think it's also important too, I notice for myself, I do like to think about the path that I'm on a lot of the time. And then there has to be a distinction between am I rethinking this or second guessing it because it's hard, or because it's not my path?
That's where my problem comes in, because this shit's hard. And I'm thinking to myself, a lot of the times what I hear is for the first couple months of a new business, it's hard, and you can't niche shop, you just gotta stick through it, you gotta do it the same thing. And then it feels hard, so it feels unintuitively what I should be doing. But then again, it's oh, well, just because it's hard. I don't know. That's where I'm at. And hearing you talk about finding your purpose and making sure that it's in alignment with what your goals are, it's making me rethink some shit. Because I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
And I really like my job, and I'm excited to do it every day, and we're growing, so it's fun. But I think it's probably been about like 3-4 weeks since I like really sat down with myself and like thought to myself, why am I doing this? Versus just like doing the thing. So I think I need to go sit down with myself and be like, what the fuck am I spending like 8 hours a day stressing about this shit?
Well, I think part of it too, it's also like subjective. It's not like there's a right or wrong answer of like, yes, this is the thing. I'm like uncovering the truth and checking the box or not. A lot of it is also like the way your mind thinks about it. Like if you were to put like pen to paper and you were to go through like, these are my core values, this is like my interest, and like this is like kind of the opportunity vehicle that I'm selecting for this season of my life. And these are the skills I'm gaining from it. This is why it's in alignment with my values. And then you were to like write that down and then revisit that like in your Flourishing Self book at a frequent rate, then it's not like you're necessarily like, this is right or this is wrong, but it's also like the way your mind perceives it. If you're getting that validation constantly of like, I have thought through this, it is what I want to do. And just because it's hard doesn't mean it's no longer the thing. And then you are able to go into every day feeling like more confident, and you're able to have more passion. And then obviously with business, the start is always the hardest.
Totally.
Like there's so much money to be made in entrepreneurship, but most people can't get through the season of hard. And trying to learn 10 different things at once and having, negative balances, and like you make a bit of a sale and then all of a sudden there's all these new problems and you're bringing team. There's a lot of shit in entrepreneurship to deal with. And so you just have to go through the hard. And I think revisiting something on paper, like constantly, at least weekly, if not daily, I think for me at least has been really helpful. For you, it sounds like that's kind of a core part of the program, the Flourishing Self. 100%. Tell us more about what the Flourishing Self is.
Cheers. I'll let you guys can flip through it, and then you can ask me questions about it. I'm an open book, so
What are your thoughts on my Starbucks?
I already told you. Said once in a while it's okay, but
What's wrong with Starbucks?
It's not organic, bro.
Yeah, it's not organic, and then B, I actually found out recently that it makes sense. Like if you think about how does the cups hold the coffee in it without it getting like soaked, until there's some sort of liner in there, and that liner is definitely not any kind of like glass or metal.
Bro, you're gonna provide your dad with income?
Yeah.
Why is that? Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to read this.
Yeah, they said it in the book. I just think like I want to, even though, because in a way, like he didn't show up for me, but was that his fault to a degree? I don't know. And that's not what I'm basing off. I'm basing off of like, I can show up at a certain version of myself to actually support the people around me.
I have a pretty core belief that what I've seen in the people I talk to and the people I meet, like everybody's just doing their best with the information. Like I don't really believe like there's any people who are like inherently bad. I feel like people just have different sets of information, and they have different genetic makeups, and they have different environments. And so I really like respect that. Like maybe, your dad might not have been there for you in the way that you needed at the time. And like he was probably just doing his best with the information he had.
Bro, what's the Liver King doing in here?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that guy's name is Brian Johnson as well.
Yeah, I know, that's crazy, yeah.
There's 3 Brian Johnsons.
Yeah, the Brian Johnson's the big middle one on the other page, yeah.
This guy?
Yeah, that's Brian Johnson. Yeah.
Huberman.
Yeah. I just put all those guys are on there, basically as benchmarks to be like, here's how old they are, and here's what they're accomplishing at these ages.
Yeah.
It gives me like a good benchmark, stroke my ego a little bit.
That's sweet. Do you want to run us through what this is and how you use it as a tool?
Yeah, sure. So this is a Flourishing Self book, and I pretty much have this, mapped out front to back to keep myself focused on the goals that matter to me, and then why those goals matter to me and how they feed into like the rest of my life. So I mean, to go through the whole thing would be pretty. There's quite a bit of sections, but basically, like, the first one is my North Star and guiding goals. So, like I talked about earlier to you guys, like, 2051, like, I bought into that North Star of, like, 51% of the world's flourishing by 2051. We talked about that. And then I have all my, like, longer-term milestones that these might change year to year, but for the time being, this keeps me, like, on somewhat of a guideline of, okay, I'm going to do this, and then generally I'm going to go there, and then generally I'm going to go there as, like, guiding goals towards my North Star, and they should all be in alignment, like North Star, guiding goals, and they should all feel aligned. Within that, there might be other things that I achieve along the way, but these are kind of like the big benchmarks that's going to push me towards the longest vision that I have right now, which is 2051. And so that's the kind of the North Star that's like super broad stroke. I have a 2024 goals. Like, just if everyone just did this and just listed out their goals and kept it on them, like all this is 2024 goals, business, wealth, personal. That's it. It's nothing fancy, but the difference is I look at this every day or every other day, you know? And so I can pretty much, you know, recite all of these off. And if I can't, then I'm like, cool, let me go like read them again. And so I just keep this around me. Like you could take nothing else and just have this one page printed out and just keep it on you at all times. You're going to be way better than you were without it.
There's so much evidence that just literally the act of tracking something, like a simple example, people will get a couple groups of people who are trying to lose weight. There's no dietary intervention, and one group of people, they'll say, weigh yourselves every day. The other people, they'll say, don't weigh yourselves every day. And the group that weighs themselves loses more weight. Or with sleep, track your sleep, don't track your sleep. No intervention. If you track something, if you pay attention to something, you're going to focus your brain on it more. You're going to make decisions. It's going to be top of mind. You're going to have more clarity. So
bingo.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, you don't, what is it? You don't manage what you don't measure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Peter Drucker. So this alone, like, and again, why this becomes so important in today's world is distraction. So again, focus is the opposite of distraction. And so if we can be distracted less of the time, that means we're focused more of the time. That's the basic premise of why I always say I don't care, quite frankly, like I do to a degree, but in this context, I don't actually care what your goals are. I just care that you know them. Mm-hmm. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. If we want to talk about purpose and like showing up and feeling aligned and da-da-da, like that's, but if we want to talk about going towards something and staying focused and staying disciplined, all I care about is that you know your goals 24/7. Because even a 5-minute window, an hour window, a day, mind you, a month where you forget about your goals, that's more than enough time with the amount of distractions are out there, that some shiny object's going to come whizzing into your life, seem pretty good because the more important stuff is completely out of your mind, so you don't have a North Star right now. You're like, oh, well, this looks like a pretty good North Star to take, and then you just grab hold of that and run. And then for some people, and I know this was me earlier on in my life, I would literally never return to those goals that I set for myself, right? And that's the name of the game with New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, you get all the dopamine from the new, the next thing, and you're like, oh, this is what's possible, and then all of a sudden you're changing things so much, and you look back and you're just full of potential. And I think 100%. The older you get, the hard part about potential in being someone who like is ambitious and like wants these big things is like the older you get, you inevitably have to close some doors.
Yes.
It's like, hey, I want this, and that, and it's all possible when you're 16, 17, 18. And it's like, okay, now I'm in my 20s, like I just have to make decisions and know that like, hey, I'm closing this door for the rest of my life. Like this just isn't going to be my pathway. And you just have to make those decisions. And I think that can be hard for some people because it's just easier to sit and like watch motivational videos and you're scrolling, you're seeing these cool things. Like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. It's like you could do a lot of things.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things back, I was actually going to answer this for Phil as well around, hey, I feel overwhelmed. Oh, is this actually what I want to do, etc. Two things. One, in their 20s, a lot of us, that's just like part of our 20s is figuring that out because we haven't done enough a lot of the time to even know, is this actually the thing I want to devote a long period of time to? And then another component is, the way I think you get a lot of clarity on that is through understanding what your values are. So I remember when I was watching the episode with Tico, he brought those values up, right? And he went through the worksheets inside of AboveMen and the exercises, and he thought about what are his values, and then how can I craft a life that is centered around those values, that I get to engage in those values more and more often. Because really, the beautiful thing about values, they don't have a specific vehicle that it fits within. Typically, there's like, it'll guide you into one path or over another. But for example, if one of my values is learning, then I'm going to try to find some sort of vehicle that allows me to learn on a day-to-day basis. That could be literally anything. But then if you have multiple values, it starts to like narrow. So if it's learning and coaching, okay, well, I might narrow it further. And then you look at a business and then you're like, well, what am I actually good at? Which brings up the other part is the ikigai. Have you guys heard of that?
No.
Ikigai is
a
Japanese
term for like that center where it's like what you're passionate about, what you enjoy, what's good for the world.
Yeah, and what can you get paid for?
Right.
Which the paid for piece is with the internet, you can do anything and get paid for. Like literally sell your feet and get paid for it, right? So the ikigai is another good way. So once you have your values, then you're clear on like what you actually love. Because again, going back to the piece of societal beliefs, how many of the things back to the things like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. How many of that is like you saying you want to do it because either you've been programmed that it's a good desire or other people around you are wanting to do it, and then hence, I remember when I was younger, the amount of things I wanted to do simply because other people wanted to do them was just astronomical, you know? And it's like, wait, I don't actually want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't actually care about any of this stuff. But the only reason I'm caring about it is because the people I care about are doing it. But is that going to make me fulfilled when no one else is around? Probably not.
So one thing I do want to touch on, because I think this is important, like our podcast is kind of like business focused, like a lot of like, you know, young entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And one thing you mentioned is like making money online is so easy.
Yeah.
And I think that,
I shouldn't say easy
I know what you mean when
accessible.
you say that. Accessible. So like, can you expand on that? Because yeah, making money, in my opinion, is not easy. But it's also like very doable, and the ceiling is very high. But I think that the problem is there's so many like, you know, online courses or like people online that are like, oh, it's so easy, you just do X, Y, and Z. Like if you're not a fucking millionaire at 20, like it's you're the problem. And then people like get in their head and they're like, oh man, this shit's supposed to be so easy. Like why can't I do it? And it's just the expectation of like what amount of work is required to get this output is like totally just off of what it actually is. And so yeah, would you want to like maybe share more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, no, that's super important. Actually, I'm glad you highlighted that, because let's reframe that word. Let's not use easy, let's use simple, right?
Yeah,
simple is actually a much better way to do it. So simple and then accessible. So virtually anyone can make money online because it is so easy to access the tools needed to make money online. That I'll use easy for. And then the path to make money is simple in the sense of the steps are pretty clear. But this comes back to distraction. It's simple and it's step 1, 2, 3, 4. But then along the way, there's a million distractions from the sidelines that is trying to like suck you into this other world at any moment. And then this is where this comes in, where it's like, hey, at the end of every day, did I actually focus on what mattered to my path on making money? And so I would honestly, again, that last part just goes with anything. But when we talk about making money online, because as soon as you get into the make money online world, there's endless opportunities in the best way possible and in the worst way possible, because you see one thing, it doesn't, you know, it's hard. So it's like, oh, I don't actually like this thing. And it's like, oh wait,
I'll go make money online.
Yeah, and then the next guru is waiting for it to send you an ad.
Oh, are you trying to drop shipping? Now XMMA is the next big thing, right?
And all of it is, and once you get to where I've been in the sense of I've tried a lot of it, now all I see is like, this guy just knows how to push your buttons. And a lot of it, if you're listening and you hear the online ads, all it is marketers know how to fuck with your mind, and they know what you want to hear, because they know you just got fed up with the e-commerce business you tried, and they're going to sell you on why that wasn't it and why social media was it, right? Or is the new thing. And that's just not the case. All of them are the thing. It just matters what aligns with your values, what aligns with what your core skill sets are, or what you want to get good at, and then what's going to help you fulfill your goals in terms of the vehicle, right? There's endless ways to make money now. It's what vehicle do you want to jump in? And this is why I always go back to Warren Buffett's quote on, it's not about how hard you row, it's about what boat you're in, right? And again, it's just such an important thing to think about. And not only with like the making money thing, but the fulfillment piece as well, because that's just what I'm big on. But that's what I would say to that, because I think it's super important, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I guess like just briefly while we're on this subject of like making money online and stuff like that, I feel like timing is definitely like a key piece of it. So if you have the base skill sets, like if you have work ethic, communication skills, like you know how to market, you know how to run a sales funnel, you know how to build a team, you know how to like do all these kind of foundational business skills, then as the next opportunity rolls around, which, you know, come every handful of years as technology advances, if you can be in tune with that and you can execute on one of those opportunities with the foundational skills, then there's a lot of opportunity. But then as soon as the first group of people execute on those opportunities and they get outsized returns for taking the risk and being first to market, they then disseminate the information to everybody else. And like, look at how easy it was, look at what I did. And then all of a sudden, once everybody's found out about this opportunity and it's super competitive, it's now no longer easy to make money. Like dropshipping is, you're not gonna just easily make money dropshipping, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. And then all of a sudden, the margins get compressed and you know the things go down. And so either you have to be really, really good at it, which takes a lot of time, or you have to have a lot of really good foundational skills and be first to market when a new opportunity arises.
I would go one step further. I agree. And I'd go one step further to say, or you're just looking at a longer time horizon and more committed than everyone else, which that's where typically comes the like real drive for it, the desire for it, like the actual love for the thing.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about making money online, they're thinking about making money online. And I think that's the wrong frame. If you actually look at people that are successful in running businesses, their businesses are providing real value to people, and it's in a way that that person is so passionate about it that they're able to put in the vast amount of work required, and they're not doing it for the money.
Yeah.
They're doing it for the business, for solving the problem. Like for you, it's like your core guiding light is like, hey, I want to have 51% of people be flourishing by 2051. And because you're able to dial in on a day-to-day basis and execute the steps to make that happen, there's a good chance when 2051 rolls around that you're going to have made a decent amount of money in your business.
Sure.
But it's because you're not chasing it. It's almost like an ironic, like a catch-22.
100%.
It's like, I want to make money. Okay, well then forget about the money. Find something you're passionate about. Provide value to people, and the money's going to come.
Totally. Yeah, there's lots of things where you can focus on the money, but the next question was, once you get the money, then what? This is a really good exercise to think on. Is like, cool, if you're on the first track of like, I'm doing the thing to make the money, which is great. We all got to survive. We all got to, pay the bills. But once you get there, then what? Because it's a good mental exercise that you can actually do. You can actually project yourself into the future. When I have the 100K month and I'm steadily rolling more than enough money I need, what next?
Yeah, I would imagine if you run a dropshipping business and you make 100K, then it's like, shit, nice. Whereas like if you run like an awesome coaching program and you have like a massive impact on people, or you have like a really like cool weight loss gym and like 90% of your clients actually lose weight, at the end of 100 grand, you'd be way more fulfilled if you have like something valuable versus just like.
So what was that quote you said about easy money?
Oh yeah, there's a quote in the Bible, I think it's in Proverbs, and it's easy money or fast money goes away fast. So any money you make quickly will disappear quickly. And any money you make slowly will sustain you for a long time.
Yeah, I've really been leaning into that, just with really taking my own path and finding my own footing in this world of coaching, where there seems to be such this like rigid mold of like, this is how you succeed as a coach. And it's like, if you don't do this, like it's going to be really hard. But it's like, that's fine if it's hard, because like, as long as I'm doing it and I feel authentic and genuine and I'm doing what I want to do, it's great to be hard, and I'm willing to make it slow, because when it does happen, it's going to be sustainable, there's a solid foundation, and I'm doing it in the way that most authentically represents me. So I totally agree with that. And the only way you're going to do that is if you have a long-term vision and you're willing to commit to, again, 5, 10, 15-year journey. That's what Hermosi talks about that, right? It's like, if I could give you what 100K now or 500K now, or I could guarantee you that you'll be a millionaire in 10 years, but you'll get like nothing in between. Like, what are you going to take? That's kind of the approach, right?
Yeah. So Mosey's my guy. You're talking earlier about like online mentors. Used to be Matt Fraser, CrossFit champion. Now it's like Alex Hormozi, I would say. Like, I feel like I've been mentored by him, which was cool meeting him the other day.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd love to ask you about, talking about focus, and you in obviously building your personal brand, you're using social media as a key piece of that. How are you able to balance like not getting sucked in and distracted, while also like not being able to just throw those platforms out the window? You need them as the foundation to grow your business. So tell us more about your experience there.
Definitely not perfect in this arena, partly because, I'll be the first to raise my hand and be like, I'm addicted to social media in a lot of ways, right? Like my phone even, always, cool, I'm addicted, right? And I can put things in place to remove that. So there's a great concept that Brian Johnson gave to me, and I forget who he got it from specifically. It was in a book. It's worth actually trying to find for you guys. But nonetheless, it's about the idea of being pickled, and how if you take a cucumber, you go through the pickling process, it becomes a pickle. You can't unpickle it. Like, it's forever a pickle. Yeah, it's never going to be a cucumber again. And so our mind is like that when it comes to addictions. Like, as soon as you become an alcoholic, you're never not an alcoholic. As soon as you become addicted to social media, you're never not addicted to social media. Like, your brain literally fundamentally shifts, and they've tested this, and I want to get the name so people can look this up, that your brain is just forever going to be different when you use social or use your phone.
Yeah, even if you like like step away from that neural pathway temporarily,
Totally.
it's still always there lying dormant.
Yeah.
And so if you are to go back into the addiction, it's not like the first time where you're rewiring these pathways from the beginning. It's like they're already etched into your brain, and now you're just like using them again. It's a lot quicker to get re-addicted, a lot quicker every time.
Bingo. So with that being said, again, that's why I said I'm going to be the first to admit that I'm addicted, because that's the first step to putting things in place that go beyond yourself. If you say I'm not addicted and I can manage it on my own, you're forever going to be in the trap of yourself and your limitations with that, right? Because these apps are so addicting. And you got to think, like, it's you versus billions and billions of dollars being spent on programmers, data scientists, behavioral engineers to literally craft something to keep you engaged. That is the exact reason this app exists, is to keep you on there so they can put an ad in front of you and make money, right? Like, so if you understand that, it's like, cool, I'm probably not going to win against billions of dollars that is constantly being spent. So it's like, what tools can I use to distance myself? Because I totally deal with this. Social media, of course, is a big part of my business, and it will continue to be, like most businesses online, even offline. And so what I do predominantly is set up certain friction points throughout my day and rules that I have with myself and that I build literally into my phone that allow me to distance myself from social media, apps, just the phone in general when I don't need to be on it. So simplest put, actually a perfect example to start would be in the morning. My phone is just like out of sight, out of mind. So I hide my phone. I don't use my phone as an alarm, and I use my Whoop band as an alarm. When I wake up, I literally could like go around my bedroom. I couldn't find my phone if I just looked for it because I've hidden it on myself. And it sounds dumb. Oh, of course you know where it is, but it's like when you wake up in the morning, if you don't see it out of sight, out of mind, you might actually just like go on with your day, with most of the time you do. Mm-hmm. And so first things first is in the morning, I hide my phone. Well, better yet, at night I hide my phone. In the morning, I don't use it. And I just commit to not using it, and it's never in my office unless I absolutely need it. That's why I hate two authentic, factor check, whatever those things are called, where you need to like get a text message.
Yeah.
The worst, because then you got to bring your phone in, and then sometimes you'll leave it there. But I've been pretty good. So it's like, phone is never on my office desk unless I absolutely need it. And that's helped so much. Like, that's easily one of the biggest shifts you can make just in your phone in general. And then I use an app called AppBlock, where I'll have a schedule running pretty much at all times when I'm not on the app. So that can prevent you from going on it. And if you're hardcore, there's a strict mode where once it's activated, you literally can't do anything.
I had an app like that. I almost hate to break it for you, but you can go on screen time, because one time I needed to get into it and I was like, how to get rid of this. You go on screen time and you just turn the off button for that app having access to your phone.
Why would you tell them that?
I know.
even if you could, like, they're, again, I don't know when that was, but they're adding in like deeper and deeper things where you can like go deeper. But even still, like, even just having it on strict mode, the odd time you're not going to think, or not all the time you're going to think about that.
Yeah, it's still better,
Yeah.
Because there is workarounds always, but sure, like, just the instant, because what it does, you go to click on it, a lot of times it's unconscious, go to click on the Instagram app or whatever it is for you, and it says app block. Instantly, that's a space of time where you have to question, like, oh, shit, why am I on here, right? Because then you can't get on it, you're like, oh, what's going on? And then you're like, oh, wait, why the fuck am I even going on Instagram in the first place? I don't actually need it, phone away. So using these apps are a huge hack, and one of the things I actually implemented recently to go one step further is there's like general guidelines where it's like in the morning, at night, I have it set where I can't go on a lot of these apps. Now, as part of my wind down routine the night before, depending on what my day is, I'll actually schedule even deeper schedules onto the app where it's like, say I'll only need my phone in the morning or at a certain part in the day, I'll only allow myself the phone in that certain part of the day, and I'll actually block the entire day now where I just can't go on Instagram at all, and I'll just shift that according to what my day is. Like, if I'm going to go create content, obviously it's going to be more. If I'm not on content, it's less, etc. So that's another one. And then the other piece is just throughout different times of my day, where can I find friction points to like add in where it becomes harder for me to go on the app? That's the biggest component. That's what the app is. That's what the phone in the bedroom, putting that aside on the office is like, how can I continuously just add friction into my day where it's harder to go on social media? That just comes down to app design 101 right there.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that, because something that I've been thinking about, or I have thought about, is like, people will typically look at discipline as like there's something in front of you that you really want and you're just like standing there not touching it. And I think that's like a very bad look at it, because the way you're describing it is like discipline isn't actually just like putting a temptation in front of yourself and being able to resist it. It's actually setting up systems and setting up friction points beforehand so that you're less likely to actually go and act on that temptation.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually just wrote a memo on this, fully diving into how to be disciplined, like pretty much a systemized approach, and really unpacking what it means to be disciplined. First of all, what you're talking about is willpower. So I'll unpack these quickly.
Yeah.
Discipline is the system. Discipline is like aligning your actions today, your behaviors today, and your decisions today in alignment with some long-term goal. So then you're architecting a set of decisions now that would create a system that would, if you buy into the system, you will move towards your goal. So that's creating like a disciplined life. That's like architecting a disciplined life. Then there's willpower. Willpower is the muscle of discipline. So willpower is the ability to resist short-term temptations, or the ability to continuously make the right decision based off of your system you created within your discipline, right? And so what's important there is like they're two separate things. Willpower feeds off of discipline, and discipline feeds off willpower. Because you can only be as disciplined as you are willpower, or as strong as your willpower is. But your willpower is only strong as your discipline, or your life is disciplined, right? So how do you do that? Well, you first have to make a lot of those decisions. You have to create a disciplined life, and then once you have that, you have the schedule, you have your clean environment, you have your goals clear, you're around disciplined people or people that are in line with your goals. Then it's about how do you cultivate higher willpower. That's the biggest thing, because you don't want to use willpower all the time, because it's quote unquote finite.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it will actually deplete.
Yeah.
But you can do a lot of things, using willpower on offense, quote unquote, which I think is just discipline. And you can create a life where you don't actually have to use willpower. So there's actually a good metric to like think on called desires resisted. It's a good metric to think on. Like, how many times do I need to go throughout the day and resist a desire?
Probably like 100.
Right? But if you can create a life where that number is significantly lower, you can actually go day over day, actually leveraging your willpower in those points, because hey, I'm only going to have maybe like a handful of times that are going to come up sporadically, where I'm going to leverage my willpower, and then everything else, I've built a life around me that I don't actually have to resist it. It's the life I want to live.
Don't keep the cookies in the cupboard.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a good metric to think on, like how many times do you go through your day and you have to actually resist something?
And how can you lower the number of things that you need to resist?
Bingo.
About that.
Yeah.
I might start doing that in my end of day journal.
It's a good metric.
Because there is usually like those like forks in the road.
Yes.
They're usually pretty clear. It's like, oh fuck, like I know what decision I should make. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Which decision do I make? And just being able to like reduce the number of those while also simultaneously reduce the number of green checks versus red X's you make in those decision making points.
Bingo. And making it easier. So if the one metric is like desires resisted, the other idea would be how can you keep putting things in your life that makes it easier and easier to do the right things, right? And if we go back to habit design, say you want to get into the habit of meditating. Well, an easy way to set that up is instead of adding friction like you would with your phone and not using it by hiding it, you would actually make it very visible to put your like meditation cushion like right at your doorstep when you first wake up in the morning, or in your office, on your office chair right before you start the day. So it's like, yes, removing as many desires as you can, and how do you make it easier and easier to do the things that are in alignment with your disciplined life according to your goals, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice. I like that.
Cool.
All right, Cam. So what about red meat?
What about red meat? Red meat's phenomenal. Whoever says elsewise is... No, I think with red meat, it's one of those ones that I actually wrote two pretty in-depth articles, both on the perception of red meat and then the actual like underlying evidence behind red meat. Mainly why people don't like red meat is the perception of it, like most things, right? We're not actually using logic, but we're using, our emotions and what everyone else is saying in the tribe. And right now the status is slowly changing, but for the last basically like 60 years or so, there's just been like an onslaught on the perception of red meat. And in doing so, it's just gone downhill. So I actually have, this week, I'm releasing that article to my newsletter, in which we'll be uncovering like all of the factors that went into creating this negative perception around red meat, which we're in today, and why so many people think it's just such a bad thing when in reality it's just not at all, and the evidence shows that.
Nice. I know one of the things you talk about in your program as well is like the quality of the meat. Like nutrients are moving up the food chain. It's not, the same going and getting like processed red meat bacon from the grocery store versus like, organic, like farm raised or hunted, lean meat. So.
Bingo. And I wouldn't even bucket that in red meat, but the unfortunate thing is that it has been, and that's one of the pieces of the perception, is like processed meat, just processed food is not the same as food. They're two separate things. And so if we're looking at what is the effects of processed red meat on the human body, and then saying, oh, that is the effects that red meat has on the human body, like that's just there's actually a fallacy for that. It's like, if processed red meat is bad for humans, and red meat or processed meat is red meat, therefore red meat is bad for humans. Like it's a fallacy. And
it's like if you eat a bunch of sugar, you're gonna get diabetes. Like if you're eating candy and then fruit has sugar, it doesn't mean that fruit is bad for you.
Bingo.
Fruit's gonna give you diabetes.
Bingo. So that's the exact thing that's going on right now in the world, and red meat is amazing. I eat it every day. There's many guys out there that have kind of realized that and is now preaching it. Dr. Paul Saladino is one of those, definitely an advocate for it, and
Tell us more about the legendary Above Nuts.
The Above Nuts. Well, brought some. The OG. This doesn't get brought up too much because 2.0 have overtaken, which for great reason. They also taste amazing. But brought some for the boys. We'll try it out.
Let's go.
Okay, we'll see how they are. So here, grab some.
This is my first meal of the day.
So I'm fasted right now.
These are good. Actually, got some fats. Got some sugar. So what that is literally pecans and maple syrup.
What's the verdict? You fucking with them, Phil?
Yeah, pretty good. Why maple syrup over honey?
Just hits different. Like, see how it's nice and crispy? That's from the maple syrup. And I think pecans already have like a bit of a maple undertone. If you just eat a pecan on its own, it has like a maple buttery undertone. So it just like enhances that flavor.
Bro. I'd probably eat that whole bag.
These are the OG ones. I'm used to the ones with honey butter.
Which are also amazing.
Yeah.
These are better for the road though, because they're all sticky.
Yeah, the other ones you gotta like crack open. Yeah, don't mind if I do.
Yeah.
They're absolutely slapping.
Yeah. So these are the OG Above Nuts. And then, like you guys talked about, we have a different version. Shout out Dylan Bundy. We literally just stumbled on making them, which is butter, cinnamon, and honey. And it's just amazing. So like everyone inside of AboveMen, even guys not inside of AboveMen, have like just taken them and ran with it. So just a staple. If you want clean eats, like what it does is it's a really good replacement for sugary foods that you would otherwise go and like want to eat a cookie, or you'd want to eat like that caramel corn or stuff like that, where whatever that's like snacky sugary stuff is. This just instantly replaces it in such a big way, like in the sense of it just tastes so much better. It's good for you. And caveat, you still got to be careful of not eating too much, which I think there's like the initial, I'll smash as many as you can, and then you kind of like find your barrier, but again, the ingredients are super clean, so.
Yeah. Man, these are great. I think they're definitely like high calorie, obviously, because there's a lot of fats. Like fat is obviously more calorie dense than like protein and carbs, and then they do have some sugar. But I think it's just a world of a difference from like eating processed food.
Huge difference,
especially for guys like myself who are like trying to bulk. It's actually a nice, easy way because I like basically my rule for eating is just like whole foods. I just eat whole foods. Yeah. I've been doing that for a long time. It's been really helpful. Obviously, getting into the program, I'm now taking a bit more of a step down, like assessing what I'm eating, because I used to do that a lot more and then just, figured Whole Foods works for me. Yeah. And now I'm kind of trying to go down that road again, and just being able to have like a high calorie snack that is also healthy, that I can eat during the day to help hit those calorie goals has been super helpful.
Yeah. Is that part of your job too, just chefing stuff up on the regular just for the boys to eat?
Yeah, kind of. Like I've started to delegate that a little bit to my housemate, which you guys will meet. He's basically my brother, Jordan. And that guy loves to cook, and so he's always like finding new recipes to try, and I was getting Tico to do it for a little bit as well. But yeah, totally, like, because again, going back to what I'm doing, allowing entrepreneurs and executives to master their energy, part of that is food, and within the context of being busy, right? And not typically having a ton of time. So it's like, how can you find easy things to like either meal prep in large bouts, or it's just super simple to make? That's kind of the realm of the cookbook that we're trying to like develop. Or the last piece is like, how can I convince you that eating this or wanting to eat this food is actually way better than eating the other food? And so making it taste like insanely good. You know, I think that's why the beef avo, like the primal bowl, is just ripped because everyone
So
eats
good.
that.
Yeah,
It's so simple.
I look forward to it every single day.
There you go.
There's
the
never a
past
day where
6
I'm like, oh, I'm
months,
tired of eating this. I'm like, every day the avocado, the beef, so good.
And the honey
some salt on
Oh
there.
my
like,
god.
Yeah.
Delicious.
So it's like finding those little like pockets of food and meals where super easy to make, extremely nutritious, taste amazing, and and people can just kind of make their own thing with it. And so it's totally part of the craft, which I love.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kim, I'm curious. Tell me more about the team. Are you a solopreneur? Do you have other people on the AboveMen team? Like, what's going on behind the scenes there?
Technically a solopreneur. I have a full-time personal trainer that is a part of the team, but on contract. And then I've had some of the AboveMen guys like help me in different, formats. Had Tico working with me for a bit. Had Luke, Fenn, and then right now actually me and Brandon Cornish are going to work together for a little bit with some referral stuff. So I've really been leaning into the community for these early stages, but long term, like I'm trying to really build an A team that just wizards across their own domain, and we can really be that all-star team. But right now, for the time being, it's a solopreneur team.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of your client base, like personally for me, I got into the program through referral. I had friends who, Tico actually was in the program, loved it. And I know that's a lot of how you've been scaling. Can you tell us also about your other acquisition channels? Like I know you've started running like some paid ads. Like how's that been going for you?
Yeah, paid ads is very early. So pretty much what the idea was to run some ads to test the angles. Because the DMs, I wasn't expecting to like close a bunch of people, but I was just seeing like, are people going to be interested? Are they going to be reaching out? And then if I close the people, great. What I was really trying to do there is I'm right now building out a VSL funnel, so like a video sales letter, ad, opt-in, VSL, book a call. So I'm literally in the works of that right now. I'm actually working with Amory, who's going to help me a little bit to refine the VSL script, and then I'm going to be recording it when I get back. So it's about to launch. Up until then, referrals, huge part of my business. And then aside from that, my organic Instagram has been a pretty reliable source and growing as my content gets better. I actually just invested in this amazing project where I'm going to be producing a ton of highly cinematic videos for the movement and really what I'm trying to do behind AboveMen and pushing that out on Instagram. So really just trying to build my Instagram up is the long-term play. Like I like the idea of paid ads. They've always appealed to me, of course, from the scale. And I think if I'm really devoting myself to the impact that I say I am, organic, and what underlines organic is the brand, is really the thing that I'm trying to go after long term. So organic Instagram's been actually pretty steady so far for me, which has been awesome. Getting a lot of guys that have followed me for other reasons. And it's like, oh, this Cam guy is actually doing something with his health now. Because I've always been in good shape, but I've never offered other people to get in good shape, And so now offering it, they knew me back then as like, oh, this good, guy in good shape, and he's now selling it. So I've had some guys in my past like come back that I've been posting on Instagram, etc.
It's such a green flag that you're focused more on like the product, and if you're getting natural referrals and you're getting organic people from your social media, it means the product works. And so like later, you want to optimize the sales funnel to maximize conversions, but it's almost like you're like running people into a leaky bucket if the product doesn't work. So what you're focused on is like, hey, let's make the product as good as possible. If someone's naturally giving a referral without you having let me get a referral program, and it's just like, hey, like this thing worked for me, you should try this. And it's growing that way. And then same with like the organic content. It's like you're posting content, people are like, hey, what's going on here? Like, how do I learn more? And it's growing that way. Then like later when you dial in the sales process, I feel like there's a lot more of a foundation to go off of, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I'll actually fully admit that as much as my background has been sales and marketing, I've actually sucked a lot of ass in the sense of my marketing. I just wasn't doing call to actions. I haven't really been like pushing in the sense of getting people in. I've been doing it here or there, but relative to what's possible, nowhere near. And so it does kind of lean into that. And I have a lot of confidence in my program because of that, because I literally just now am starting to actually build out a referral program where it's like consciously asking for people. Up until then, it's been what you've been saying, is like other guys without me prompting them will go and be like, dude, you got to try this thing, work with Cam, he's amazing, etc. And it's been very validating, right? And that's why I have just absolute certainty in what I do, not only because I practice what I preach and I know the results I'm getting, and that's being shown in all the other guys that are around me inside the program. So yeah, it's a great way to look at it. And I have a lot of confidence that it's going to work long term. It's just what are the small little details that like unlock the bigger scale. And if it comes today, great. If it comes in a year, great. I'm in it for the long haul, right?
Yeah. So obviously what's in the program is like vast depths of information been distilled down, and there's a lot of different pieces of it. If you had to, for example, for an Instagram clip, make a 1 minute summarization of like someone's totally new to the program, what are the key pillars that they want to hit in order to become more of an above man? What would you say are those key pillars? Yeah,
it would kind of be full circle moment back to what we just started. Again, there's the 4 energetic pillars: physiology, psychology, clarity, and environment. First and foremost, the thing that's going to change the quickest is your physiology. Like, start eating different food. As soon as you start eating different food, you're going to start feeling different, have more energy. Your focus is going to be better. You're going to start seeing physical changes.
When you say different food, what do you mean by that? Like, what food should people be eating?
Yeah, so I normally get them on a 28-day reset. And so what the program is, like a lot of guys have jumped onto, the beef and avocado bowl, literally grass-fed beef, avocado, real salt. That's number one. If you do that first thing in the morning, instead of any of your carb bullshit, you're going to be in a much better place. Right off the bat. Don't eat any carbs, don't eat any breads. Right in the morning, just eat a high-fat, high-protein diet, and you're going to be in amazing shape. From there, just eliminate the fat 3. So seed oils, industrialized seed oils, refined sugars, and refined wheat flours. You do that, all your inflammation virtually is going to zap out of you. You're going to start having higher energy, more focus. You're going to start seeing changes in your body. Once that happens, you're kind of hooked to this idea of like optimizing your performance. But that happens literally within 3 to 7 days. I've had guys lose 20 pounds in 28 days before, just from switching from what they were doing to on a similar diet to what I kind of talked about in the program.
Was there any switch there in their exercise, or was it literally just what they were eating?
Pretty much what they were eating.
That's crazy.
Like, if anything, some of them stopped working out, right? But again, it's relative to where they started, to where they went, etc. But physiology, got to start there. As soon as your physiology's dialed in, I got to get your goals clear. Like, you got to get clear on where you're going. I don't care what they are at this time. I just care that you have goals, because then you're going to have more discipline, more willpower to do the right things for the rest of the time being. And then from there, we're looking at your daily protocol. What do you do in a day? We're looking at your systems of like, how do you keep yourself organized? We're looking at your friends, who do you hang around with? What are your habits, etc. But first and foremost, physiology. Then we're getting into, your clarity and your goals, etc. Then it goes from there.
Cool. So if you had to summarize like a protocol without going too in depth on it, like 30 seconds, these are the kind of the key pillars to optimize your physiology for someone who's brand new to this, what would you say?
To optimize someone's physiology, so eat whole foods as close as nature intended. Don't eat the fat 3, seed oils, wheat flour, and sugar. Move the body consistently throughout the day, not just once in a while every week. And sleep at least 8 hours. Time in bed versus time of sleep is different. And so having a Whoop shows you what your sleep efficiency is, meaning if you go to bed for 8 hours, you're probably only sleeping for 7. So actually getting 8 hours is key. And one of the biggest habits is just sleeping at the same time and waking up at the same time.
Sick. I like that. Those are some good pillars. Those are great. Phil, what are you curious about?
I was just thinking about just now, like, if you've had any cool like success stories that you wanted to share with us about any of your clients.
Yeah, I mean, in different lights, there's so many stories now within even the context of, I think we're around 40 guys that have either come and gone or are active in the community. There's just so many in different ways because we talk about so many different things inside the program. One of them that comes to mind that, just fills my heart is Brandon Cornish, and his like shift with his relationship with himself and just going from someone that like really was dependent on the outside world to validate and like feel emotion and like be okay just within himself. He had to always be around someone else, whether it be a girlfriend or, just friends, to now just having such a loving relationship with himself. And that sounds counterintuitive to all the things we just spoke on, but it's actually one of the key things that I do touch on deep into the program. And I think self-love and having self-love for yourself is so important, and it can make you flourish in all areas of your life, because if you really care about yourself, you're not only going to be more, hold yourself to a higher level standard, you're going to have higher integrity levels with yourself, you're going to be more willing to want to go and do bigger things. And so that one just like lights me up, because self-love is such an overlooked part of a man's life, right? Where it is so easy to be hard on ourselves all the time, right?
And I honestly don't hear anybody talking about it.
No one.
No one's really told me like, oh, you should love yourself.
Like one of the questions I used to ask early in my sales calls, and it's still the question I love asking, is like, when was the last time you told yourself you love you? Like, I just love asking guys that, because it just like is something that another guy would never ask, and then B, it's something they've never thought about like 90% of the time. You know, like when was the last time you told yourself you loved you?
Last night.
There you go. Good man. Good man. What about you?
I think probably 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
We've got some AboveMen here.
Sure.
Let's go. So, yeah, that would be one of them. There's some other ones like Olivier Grinnell. It would be another one. He, obviously, you know, past podcast guest. He is just such a golden boy in terms of like what it means to be an above man. Like that guy just reps everything that we've worked on together so hard, and it's so embedded into who he is, that I just like, you can see it night and day between before we started to work together and now. Like he's just a completely different person, and he'll admit that happily as well. And guys like Tico as well, guys like Sasha, there's so many guys that have just like fully bought in and just radically in all areas of their life just like flourished in a major way. So yeah, it fires me up. Hearing thinking about those guys.
My next question is like, you obviously have a pretty sweet community around AboveMen. Like I'm not part of the program, but I still like know a lot of the guys, and the way that they talk about it and the way that like it's changed their lives has been really cool to see. And the way that everyone kind of like hangs out and comes together, like you've created this space for people to like come together and talk about like these very specific pillars: energy, wellness, like health, relationships. Have you been like conscious about how you've been building this like platform for people to be able to actually connect about those type of things?
Yes, and there's so much more. Like building a community is probably the hardest battle out of it all, because I think community and brand is very synonymous, and like brand building is very hard. Community building, same thing. Like it's really getting everyone to like come in together towards a collective goal with somewhat of the same values or adopting similar values, etc. So it's been something that I think I got some easy wins up front, like the Primal Bowl, Above Nuts. Like I'm building my own world almost, where I have certain language that people are willing to adopt. I have certain
hedonic boy.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. So that actually falls under a different category, even though it's keywords that like the hedonic boy and the above man. Those are two. But what that is like us versus them. You know, the good and the bad, the higher and the lower. And in doing so, I've painted this picture of like where we don't want to be versus where we want to be. And it's become very clear. It's like, who wants to be a hedonic boy? When you hear that, it's like, who the fuck wants to be a hedonic boy? Yeah. No one, right? Especially if you're a high achiever and you're going after life with all you can. And so I not only started to build my own language, which has helped to build the community, but then distinguishing those two opposites, the hedonic boy and the above man. In my very first video on the program, I established that. This is what the hedonic boy does, this is what the above man does. And then I later define the above man deeper. And that I think helps create this sense of alignment with what we're all trying to go after. Is like, we're all trying to become above men. Like even myself, I'm not the above man, right? I say the above man is something just happened with that video there.
Oh, we got a low battery.
Okay. Is that still recording there?
Probably not. We got the final camera, I guess.
So basically, everyone's going towards this version of us, which is above man, even myself, and that's never kind of accomplished, right? We're always going towards that. So I think I had some easy wins up front that have allowed us to kind of come together. The merch obviously was one of the ones that I like passed around, went through like a way too long of a revamp. Now we finally got the new merch. So I think merch is a huge piece of that. But the bigger picture, I'm so far from being able to actually build the community to the level it could be and I want it to be. Part of it is just getting new members in on a weekly basis and driving traffic. So Yeah, but it's a very exciting part. Like the community is like the funnest thing out of it. Doing this retreat that we're about to go to, like this is the funnest part of the whole thing. We get to like build this, philosophy that we all like go at it on our own accord, day to day, week to week, and then every so often we get to like come together and reflect and support each other, celebrate, and then we get to go back and do it again. And each time it's like the momentum's getting a little bit quicker and everyone's buying in a little bit deeper, and we're all moving closer and closer to that same goal, which is showing up as our best self, creating impact in the world in our own idiosyncratic way. And I'm just kind of help facilitating that along, right?
Sweet. I love that. Yeah. We got a question for you. It's kind of just a thought experiment. We ask all of our guests this question because obviously we are focused on like business, entrepreneurship, finances. And so we just like to kind of pick our guests' brains. And the question is, if you were tasked with making $1 million of profit, like you have to basically pay someone $1 million in 3 years' time, what would you do to generate that income? Assuming that you can't use your current business, like you're starting from ground zero. How would you, if you had to, generate $1 million?
I actually wouldn't do what I'm doing right now, that's for sure. In today's world, $1 million in how many years?
3 years.
In 3 years, I would probably go and try to find either AI or crypto idea or startup that I could buy into and ride that wave really heavily.
So just like gamble and hope that ride is like one of the ones that goes up and not down?
Yeah, pretty much. Like not a coin, like I wouldn't invest it into a coin per se, but I would find a startup idea or create my own startup idea, ideally a software that would be based on either AI or crypto. And I would pretty much just get that valuation, like call it like a 10x multiple. I'd just get it to like 100,000 ARR and then sell it for 10x multiple for $1 million.
Nice.
Yeah. Software is probably the easy thing. And where my mind goes with that, just to break it down, is like AI and crypto are obviously the biggest waves right now. So again, it's not how hard you row, it's what boat you're in. So like instantly by putting myself in those boats, like my likelihood of success just instantly went up, right? And then 2, software easily is the most scalable, and the multiples on software versus any other business is just so big. My network with the software is just the globe, and you really only have to get to 100K AR, which could be 10 customers at 10K, 100 customers at 1,000. Like it'd be pretty achievable pretty quick if I had the skill set of sales, which I could sell high tickets. So I bet you I could just go and sell 10 guys on a 10K ARR package and away we go, right? So that's my reasoning for it.
Cool, nice. And what would you want to leave the audience with? Any words of wisdom? How do they find your content? Just kind of final parting thoughts.
Well, you can find me at Cam Russelle on Instagram, and the bigger plug would totally be subscribe to my free newsletter, Memo to Men, where I talk on pretty much everything that we spoke on here in a newsletter format, which I'll also give you YouTube videos alongside those memos, etc. And then in terms of parting information, damn, it's covered so much. I would just say back to one of the pieces we talked on, which is at the end of the day, are you showing up as your best self? And asking yourself that more and more often. And then that will lead to you figuring out what you need to do to show up as that best self. But if you don't question that and shine your light on that, you're going to be complacent relative to who you could be. And I see this all the time with entrepreneurs. They compare themselves to the average. First of all, the average right now is very bare bottom. And then second of all, it's not about you versus others, it's you versus you. And so it's again closing the gap between your capable being versus you actually being. And just start asking yourself that. Did I show up as my best today? Why not? Okay, go take action on that. But if you're not asking that question, then you're going to go down a path that might not lead you to the best results that could have been. So
let's go. Cheers. That's a banger, man.
Thanks, man.
Cheers, bro. It's a good one.
Check out the school group as well. AboveMen.
School group? Yeah. I'll feed them in there, but
yeah.
for sure get on the email list.
Sweet.
Sweet, gents.